Hi, I'm Kat Kahn, and I'm here interviewing the Houghton brothers. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, you did. Thank you.
Oh, cool. Very good. We have Shane there with the glasses and Chris. And we are here at the American Library Association annual conference, and they are in Artist Alley.
Yes.
And we're also in sunny Anaheim, California. Yeah.
Shady right now.
Yeah, we're in the shade, so it's pretty nice out here. Okay, well, I just had a few questions that I'd like to ask both of you. And my standard question has been, how did you get into comics?
I think we started. Reading or creating?
Creating.
Creating. Okay. I was going to film school, and so I was doing a lot of writing and lots of visual projects. And at the same time, my brother Chris was in art school, and I got a little frustrated at film school because it takes a lot of people to make something. You have to get your crew, you have to get actors, you have to feed them and secure locations, and if you want to do anything really cool, it usually costs money and times. And I realized with comics, I could write whatever I wanted. I could blow up as much stuff as I wanted in the story, and it took two people. Like, I would write it and somebody would draw it. And so I asked Chris if he was interested in doing something. And
yeah, and I was kind of going through a similar thing where I was studying animation and making short films, and in the same way with live action film, animation, if you don't have a crew, if you're just doing it by yourself, which may tend for a short film you are, you can work for a full year on a minute-long film or a 5-minute film. Whereas with a comic, you can tell the same amount of story in maybe a few weeks worth of work, or maybe a month. And if you spend a year on a comic, you can tell this pretty epic tale compared to animation. So we took those two loves of film and animation and really storytelling and boiled them down to just a different medium. And when the comics haven't stopped.
Ah, that's great. Now, have libraries been helpful for you in getting your comics in and sharing them with the patrons?
we're pretty new to the library. Our first issue that was published, we self-published for a couple of years, and it was very small, not in libraries, and then we got picked up by Image Comics, our publisher now, and our first graphic novel just came out in November of 2011, and so we haven't really had a product for the library yet. And now it's a couple months later, and we're here at ALA meeting lots of librarians and helping them introduce them, to Reed Gunther, our book, and so I don't even know if we're in any libraries yet, but I think after this week, we're definitely going to be in a few, because we've had a great reaction. Lots of people seem really interested in it, and it's our book is geared towards kind of more boys 7 to 12, and I think that's a good period when boys are learning how to read and they're interested in reading, but not necessarily blocks of text. And so people are looking for different ways to get these kids hooked on reading. And comics is a great gateway drug to novels. Okay, well maybe you know what I mean.
Yeah. Although they're just fun reading on their own.
Right.
Yeah. Now that we've got a monthly comic that comes out, but those single issues, they were ever be in a library.
Get demolished. It's just paper stapled, and they would get. So it kind of takes a few of those to make the graphic novel, some binding.
But it's great to see the reaction on the books and see them, getting out into the wild and out of comic shops and into more accessible places. A library is very accessible for kids.
Okay, great. Now your comic is Reed Gunther, and it is a very interesting Western with a different kind of cowboy, isn't he?
Right, Reed Gunther, he's a bear riding cowboy, so we don't have any horses in the book. There might be a couple, but it's really Reed riding around on a grizzly bear with his best friends, and they travel through the Wild West, and they fight supernatural creatures and monsters. We've got giant cow-eating snakes and werewolves and mole creatures, and John Henry comes back from the dead as a zombie. And so it's very, it's goofy, silly adventure. It's not really violent or Reed Gunther, he's a cowboy, he has guns, he doesn't ever use them. It's kind of that type of thing where he's like, he fits his, it's more about his character and how his weird ways of solving problems, usually that he kind of creates because he's a little bit of a bumbling kind of guy. But yes, it's a very fun, adventurous story.
Okay. Now, I assume you guys have been reading some comics over the years.
Yeah.
Is there anything by anybody else out there that you would recommend?
You mean like
To recommend for anyone who would want to read, whether it's you're aiming at children or at teens or whatever.
and stuff that's being currently made or stuff that's
Anything.
been out
Of all time.
Anything.
Wow,
We'll
that's-
list a few.
yeah, that's lots.
One of my favorite series that I actually read the whole thing by checking it out at the library was Bone by Jeff Smith. That's an all-ages kind of epic adventure thing like Lord of the Rings. Super fun. More current titles, I really like, there's a book called Chew by Image Comics, and it's about a detective who gets psychic readings whenever he eats something, so he can solve crimes by like eating a finger, you know, and he's like, oh, it's really gross, but then he's like, oh, I know who did it. And it's a really fun book.
Yeah, really fun. Like, it'd be a great teen book.
Good teen book.
There's we're big fans of Goon, which is probably more of a teen book. Big fans of BPRD from Dark Horse. And then we love funny books. I mean, we love the Simpsons books that are put out by Bongo. Both Shane and I have been working on the Adventure Time stuff, doing some covers for Boom's new series. Shane's been writing a bunch of the Peanuts stuff. We really like those books. There's so much.
Yeah.
The Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck is a great Don Rosa series about how Uncle Scrooge, amassed his wealth. And that's really fun. I'm also reading a lot of old comic strips. Like I'm reading all the old original Peanuts strips from like the 50s, and like those are really great. And the Floyd Gottfredson Mickey Mouse strips.
Oh yeah.
Those are both Fantagraphic collections, and they do a beautiful job collecting these really old strips and presenting them in a really gorgeous book. And I'm kind of rediscovering all these old things that I read as a kid. So it's fun.
Okay. Now, what one piece of advice would you give to someone who came up to you and said, I think I would really like to create comics?
I think I know what you're gonna say, and hopefully it's the same thing I'm gonna say. Well, I'll go first, and then you.
Well, let's say it together.
Okay.
Let's see what happens. Do more.
Do it yourself.
Pretty close. Pretty
The
close.
main thing is like when we wanted to start doing comics, we did it. I wrote, he drew, we printed it up ourselves. We went to comic conventions and started selling them. People always think there's some sort of magic thing they have to do to be able to start. And
waiting for permission.
Yeah, like I have to get hired first or something like that. It's really, you just have to take pen to paper with an idea and just go with it. And your first stuff might not be very good. Ours isn't. And then it gets better, and the more you do it, and it's the practice makes perfect type of thing. So if you want to make comics, start making comics.
Yeah, and I think the big thing is, just like continue to do it. Do a short story, and then do another, and then do a longer book, and then do another one, and you're gonna have to just keep doing it and trying to. And we still have trouble with that.
Yeah.
It's like just
setting
sitting
realistic
down.
goals. If some people will jump in if they're like, I'm going to create my graphic novel epic of my entire life, and that's a huge undertaking to be your first project. So keep it short, keep it simple, and be prolific with how many projects you do. Keep them short, and then you grow and you'll get better, and you can eventually do that. Epic.
Okay. And now I'm going to put you guys on the spot. I've done this to everyone else. It's a hard question. Yeah. What one thing would you like libraries to do that you don't think they're doing yet to support comics?
To support comics, buy our book.
Okay, that was a good one.
No, I'm interested. I just heard about this weekend about a new project that iVerse, which is a digital comics distributor project that they're doing, where they make an entire publisher's catalog, every book they publish, available. And I think libraries are charged per checkout. So you don't have to spend the money to buy a book and say, I hope this gets checked out. I hope our patrons like this choice that I've made. You give the patrons the choice. Anything they want to read, it's available, and it's a smaller price to the library, and then the money goes directly to the publishers. So the publishers and the libraries both benefit, and the readers, because they get whatever they want. And that sounds like a really cool idea. And I'm sure there's problems that they'll figure out, because I was like, oh, how would you get that digital copy? But I think you can get it on the web, and they know more about it. But that sounds really cool to me, is kind of digital distribution through the library system.
Yeah, it's weird to say, because libraries are doing more for comics than they ever have in the history of comics.
Yeah.
Because they never used to do anything. And so in the last, seems like the last 15, 20 years, maybe really in the last 10 years, has been a big push with a whole graphic novel section in most libraries. So I think the longer they continue to do what they're doing, the easier everything will become, and stigmas will change as to yeah, of course comics are in libraries now, whereas we're still kind of in a period where it's seen as a little radical, you have a modern library if you have comics, and I think that'll soon just become the norm. It's quickly becoming already.
We're very lucky. We live in Los Angeles, and they've got a huge library system, and it's very current, and they have lots of graphic novels. But I think maybe more of the middle of the country, they're still kind of getting into graphic novels. I know growing up, our library that we had in our hometown in Michigan didn't really have. They had comic collections of strips, and we devoured them. We absolutely loved them. And I think they're starting now to have graphic novels. So I think if the libraries don't already have graphic novels or collections of comic books in their system, if they can start, that would be phenomenal.